There is sometimes a fine line between genius and madman, and both terms have been used to describe Chip Kelly, the former coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, who is now the former coach of the Philadelphia Eagles as of just in the last 24 hours or so. We bring in Macy Golder from the Giant Insider to help us sort through a controversial stay for Chip Kelly in Philadelphia. Macy, of course, it's good to talk to you. What are your thoughts about Kelly's ouster? Just because, to me, he had two successful seasons when the Eagles were not a good team before his arrival. One down season usually doesn't mean a coach is going to lose his job.
Yeah, Mark, it's good to see you again. And, you know, just when we thought the NFC East couldn't get any crazier this year, the Eagles fire their head coach with one game left in the season. You know, Chip Kelly and the Eagles this season, even a little bit of last season, and definitely during the off seasons, the biggest word to describe them, I think, would be frustration. It seemed that there was frustration with player and coach relationship. There seemed to be frustration between player and player relationship. There was frustration with the management and the fans. And the fans are, you know, essentially a part of the team. So when you have all that frustration and you kind of take a step back and you look and say, what is the cause of all of this? I think Chip Kelly was the answer.
So he goes 10-6 his first year, and he is an innovator in which, at a time in which there was doubt as to whether he could bring this college offense to the NFL, run this up-tempo, spread you out, just keep the plays moving and run as many plays as possible and be as effective. Well, obviously, he's not going to be as effective, but it seemed to work with the right personnel. The controversial thing that he did was kind of take over the personnel department, bring in some of the people that he liked, let a lot of people go that seemed to be very productive players. LaShawn McCoy is kind of the poster boy for that, who went to Buffalo and was pretty bitter about it and outspoken about Chip Kelly not necessarily being a class act, a character guy when it comes to treating all players the same.
Yeah, that was definitely huge for the Philadelphia Eagles. It was not good news. Sometimes when you kind of clean house or bring in other guys, it's an exciting new start. And for the Philadelphia Eagles, that really just set them back further. I think one of Chip Kelly's biggest things is you can watch the Eagles and their first drive, they can go 15 plays, boom, boom, boom. They look great. You think, okay, this is a new team. They got their act together over the week. But they come back out on the field, and it's the same thing again. This defense, they know what they're expecting. And every defense just shuts down the Eagles' offense. I think one of the biggest problems that Chip Kelly had was that in college, as a head coach, you have control over players. In the NFL, he didn't have that same control, and he couldn't handle these players because here are these guys making millions and millions of dollars, and Chip Kelly is trying to say, you won't go out, you won't do this, you won't do that. Unfortunately, in today's world, you can't do that. But in college, Chip Kelly could kind of use that as a threat, saying, hey, if you go out, if you break curfew, if you get involved in the wrong things, you're out. And it's more than just me that is going to, you know, punish you. So I think that's really what hurt the NFL and with the Eagles this year and even the previous years. I don't see him going to an NFL team again. They're saying that he will, and he said he wants to stay in the NFL, but I do not think he will be successful if he stays in the NFL.
If Chip Kelly, as a successful college coach, finishes his NFL career as a not-so-successful coach, he certainly would not be the last. That seems to be the rule, not the exception, that successful college coaches, for whatever reason, cannot be successful in the NFL. One of our most recent examples would be Nick Saban from the Alabama and LSU championships, and in between he goes to Miami to coach the Dolphins and didn't like it, wasn't successful, had a very short stint, so you can't really judge it on that. But this seems to be a trend for a lot of the reasons that you just highlighted, that it's difficult for college coaches who are the CEO. They're like the mayor or the governor on campus. They can do whatever they want, and then they go to the NFL, and guys that they're coaching are making more money than they are, and that's always a difficult message to get across when you're dealing with guys that have a sense of entitlement and are making a ton of money. Chip Kelly has run into that. So we will see what the next step is. On the other hand, Macy, I do think that with a guy like Chip Kelly, who I think it's safe to say that he's got a decent-sized ego, that guys like him don't want to admit that they've made a mistake and don't want to admit that they can't make it at a certain level, and his pride may get in the way of better judgment, and he may take an NFL job just to prove that he can win at this level.
Absolutely. I mean, there's always something that's not for everyone. And maybe the NFL isn't for Chip Kelly, but maybe it wasn't the NFL. Maybe the NFL is for Chip Kelly, but maybe it was not the Philadelphia Eagles. Maybe it's some other team. Maybe he's going to go to Tennessee and match up with Mariota, and maybe some kind of magic is going to, reappear there and something's going to happen. We don't know. But I think the biggest question, and being in the Philadelphia area that has been asked, has this for Chip Kelly been a failure or has it been a disaster? It kind of ruined, like you said, his big ego reputation. Remember, he comes from Oregon, who was just used to winning and being so much of a powerhouse and exciting, to something that just maybe didn't work out and was a failure because of the team that he had in front of him, the moves that he made on the roster and within the departments and everything else within the Philadelphia Eagles.
And that sounds like a good poll, Macy. Was Chip Kelly's stay in Philadelphia a success or a failure or a disaster? I say right. None of the above. That's what I say. I say it was incomplete. I say that the Philadelphia Eagles were like a 4-12 team before he arrived. He went 10-6, 10-6. He went to a playoff game, and then he has an incomplete season. Basically finished out the season. Failure the third season, but most coaches get to ride it out and get to see it to completion to some extent, or at least have 2 bad seasons. So for me, and I'm not a Chip Kelly fan, I don't think he got a fair shake. If you're just judging by wins and losses. Now, the ownership, they need to look at the entire body of work and see if it's working, rather than just, hey, 2 good seasons, 1 bad season, we're going to let him go. And they're looking at more than that, and they should. But I'm just looking at wins and losses and saying it's an incomplete resume for Chip Kelly in Philadelphia. Macy Golder joining us from the Giant Insider. So why don't we talk about the Giants? And 2-time Super Bowl champion, winning coach Tom Coughlin, who a lot of Giants fans would like to see ride off into the sunset. Your thoughts about Coughlin's long stay in New York and whether it's coming to an end?
I have to say I do think Coughlin's time is coming to an end. He's given it a good run, 2 Super Bowls. Fans are very thankful for that. He's collected great talent, and he's kept that talent around, such as Eli and some of these other guys. But there comes a time when you get older, and maybe it's time to, like you said, sail into the sunset. There was rumors that he sold his house in New Jersey, so maybe he's moving back to his home in Florida after this season. I'm not really sure. I think this matchup this weekend for the Giants and the Eagles will be a very interesting one. The Eagles without Chip Kelly and possibly Tom Coughlin's last game. I think it's going to be really interesting because one of 2 things are going to happen. Number 1, the Eagles are going to be lost. There's going to be many false starts, wrong, just everything's going to go wrong for them. Or because, if you look at Chip Kelly's offense, that was just something different than normal football. So either that's going to happen, and the Eagles are just going to fall apart, and they're just going to say, okay, it's the end of the season, let's just wait until next year and start new. Or the Eagles are going to run all over the Giants because the Giants are going to have no footage or no film to watch and know what to expect of the Eagles this week. And the Eagles already blew the Giants out once this year, and if there's anything the Eagles love, it is to beat the New York Giants. And if the Eagles could send out Tom Coughlin, with a huge loss, that would fuel them. So I think this weekend is going to be a really interesting matchup. That they're playing for nothing, but the Eagles could be playing to send Tom Coughlin out with a loss.
Okay, Macy, counterpoint number 1 is if you've got a line on this game and you know exactly what's going to happen, that Philadelphia is going to be a disaster, we need to go to Vegas and make some money. Number 2 is that I think Tom Coughlin's wife just doesn't like the kitchen and they need an upgrade. So I think that's why the house is on the market. And number 3, I think Tom Coughlin, to an extent, should be given the respect of a 2-time Super Bowl champion and should be able to write his own ending I think he's still a capable coach. I think they have some other issues. The personnel is not the best, especially on defense, and he should be given maybe one more season to right a wrong and see if he can finish out in better shape than what the Giants are currently showing at this point. So those are my thoughts about Tom Coughlin in New York.
I mean, as a fan, I have to disagree with you. I cannot give Coughlin any more chances. I can actually remember being at training camp. The Giants won in 07, so that training camp before that season, and Tom Coughlin walked out, and I turned to my dad and said, God, I wish he wasn't our coach anymore. So
you're making my point for me. You said this before he won his first Super Bowl.
I know. And, you know, he made some comment. It was raining at training camp, and he made some comment about everyone go home and bring your light bulbs out so we can still practice, because it was, like, dark and raining. And I looked at my dad, and I'm like, really? This guy needs to go. So, you know, he proves me wrong that year. But there's no chance Coughlin proves me wrong. And, you know, he's a great guy. He's done so much great things for the Giants, for the NFL, for me as a fan, for me, you know, even just getting the chance to cover him and cover the Giants. He's a great guy. I cannot take that away from him. But you do question some of the play calling, some of the challenges, some of the times he doesn't challenge something, the player reaction when Odell went crazy this year and Coughlin was nowhere to be found. You know, at what point are you going to be a head coach and step in and say, dude, pull yourself together and get back into this game, not only for yourself but for the team? And Coughlin wasn't there.
Okay, Macy, as general manager of the New York Giants, I trust your judgment much better than mine, and I go along with your decision. He has had a number of consecutive losing seasons, non-playoff seasons there with the New York Giants, and a good thing sometimes goes bad at some point, and you kind of lose the players, and maybe he's at that point. So it is a business, and it has been four seasons since the last Super Bowl, and a number of, again, not successful seasons. I think a great debate for us, if you're going to take me up on this one at some point, not for right now, would be, because somebody asked me this today, Eli Manning's career or Peyton Manning's career, which one do you take? So don't start. We'll pick that up at another time.
Is it Peyton on HGH or Peyton on...
I thought you liked Peyton. I didn't think you would pick on him.
Okay, I do.
That was a layup, I know.
You set me up for it.
I certainly did.
Okay.
All right, Macy Golder joining us from the Giant Insider, and Macy also has a little show called Mark and Macy. You can check that one out as well. All right, Macy, thank you so much.
Thank you.